Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Swamp Thing as well as the latest episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I'll include a time and I'll start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I say about this week's episode of Swamp Thing, you can skip to what I say about this week's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Swamp Thing. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode. Obviously, you have, Jason, his desperation to save his wife because obviously her memory is getting worse. And it's so interesting because she has this vision of being like calling out to Jason in the darkness, and she comes across a body, but it's not his. It's a monster. Now, that could be interpreted multiple ways. Could that be her hinting at Swamp Thing or the Blue Devil thing, which obviously we're going to tackle in this episode, but I'm curious, where that lies, because once again, I feel like the whole thing is Moray's on top of some ley lines where just everyone's kind of slipping into some kind of supernatural, it's all kind of weaving into people in a little bit, but nevertheless, it's kind of interesting to break to think about that potentially being, because it's just interesting, she's losing her memories, yet such a specific thing kind of pops into her head in her nightmares. It just seems like there might be more to that, but maybe not. We'll see. Abby turns to the one person she can turn to about this whole Alex situation, and that's Liz. Liz, without a doubt, being her bestie, is like, yo, I got your back. Let's do this. You've always had mine. I've got yours. And so what's interesting is that they do track down the facility and everything. All the while this is happening, it's like, oh yeah, the stranger comes to visit Daniel, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to give you a vision of the future. Now, when Liz and Abby got attacked, when they were getting shot at, I was like, they're going to pull away and just show you the guards shooting at him. No, they showed you even see Abby gets shot a couple times, and the last one hits her in the head, and her blood splatters on her back. I was like, Jesus, I'm forgetting what show we're dealing with. It's right, they don't cut away from that stuff. Because in any other show, you'd be like, oh, they show the gunfire probably from the soldiers' point. You probably get the camera in front of the soldiers showing them firing, and that's it. But then to show both Liz and Abby dying like that is brutal. So there's that, but it's whoa, that's a potential future. Once again, showing you who the hell is this stranger and what kind of powers do you got? The fact is, you can do something like that. You can show him that vision. You can make this deal to make it so that Daniel can't leave Moray. And it's oh, it's time for you to become the real Blue Devil. He's that's just a character. It's oh, but it's so much more. So I'm curious, is the movie of the Blue Devil, is it actually based on some actual mythology in the DC universe about a legitimate Blue Devil? I'm wondering. It's oh, it isn't just some coincidence. You offered up that you give anything to play that role, and now you're not only playing that role, you're playing it in real life potentially. And I thought it was going to be a thing of okay, he puts on the mask and he transforms, but it's no. It seems like the mask is the catalyst with everything that happened to him. It's it makes you wonder if it wasn't for Woodrew's serum, what he took from Alec. If it's if it wasn't for that, would Daniel have ever become the Blue Devil? Would it still work? I mean, because we saw it glowing like that even beforehand. I guess it just made his body prepared for it. So maybe things would have worked a little differently if he hadn't gotten Woodrew's serum in him. But nevertheless, like I said, he doesn't put the mask on. He grabs it, but then it starts glowing. He drops it. His body starts burning, and he literally turns into a devil, horns and everything. So when Abby and Liz are in there, they're in trouble. Things do work out a little differently, showing you that time isn't just going down one path, because in their vision, they didn't cut off the lights. It stayed on. But then you have the Blue Devil coming in, throwing a blue fireball, burning one dude horribly, grabbing another. It was legitimately, it turned into a monster movie. That's crazy. I wasn't really expecting that. I didn't think Daniel would go through that transformation at all this season, but that was just kind of interesting to me to see him. And you don't get 100% a good look at it, but enough of a look when it's grabbing on and just opening its mouth and fire's coming out of his mouth and his eyes, and it's just... That scene afterwards was gnarly, and it's scary too, because Abby and Liz are there staring at it, not knowing what the hell this is and what's going on. Like I said, this is going obviously the show even tells you, oh, we going way past science fiction in this. We're going definitely on the more supernatural side of things where you can't explain everything. So there's that. It's interesting too, because when they leave later on, Daniel's amongst the people, but they don't realize it because he's already transformed back, and he's amongst the bodies and stuff like that. They're just in a hurry to get out of there. But that was interesting. So there's that. But then there's also the morbid situation with Woodrew. He's cutting open Alec. It's just it's like, oh, it's causing him pain and stuff like that. It's like, no, you don't have any pain receptors or anything like that. So why are you feeling pain? It doesn't make any sense. Because he's like, oh, I can feel everything. I thought it was like, okay, so the plants can obviously feel everything. But then we get a bomb drop I wasn't expecting. In the grand scheme of things, it makes sense. He's like, yeah, he's pulling out these organs. I'm like, okay, what's the point of this? He's making note of like, these organs aren't working. I'm like, I don't get it. And then it's like, oh, I get it. The mutagen basically inhabited the plants. When Alec was dying, they took his memories. Swamp Thing is not Alec Holland. It's a husk of who Alec Holland was. The real Alec Holland, it's gone forever. All it is memories. This thing in front of them isn't, there is no human there. That's just the plant. And he's like, wait, what? So I was like, dude, that's nuts. I don't know if that's typically how that works for him in the comic books, but that's crazy to think about it. And that kind of comes back later on. There is no cure for him. There never was, because he's not Alec Holland. He's a plant monster that the plants. That's why he's so in tune with the green, because he is the green. He just is the green that has the mind of a man. I guess it needed a good person to be the consciousness that Swamp Thing could exist through. And it's like maybe the plants saw. Maybe it's just, hey, Alec just happened to be there. He was dying. This is their way to kind of keep him alive. Or maybe it's just because he was the nearest host. Or maybe it was a situation of maybe he was chosen in the grand scheme of things that the plants saw that he was a good person. I mean, obviously the plants, the swamp have a memory, so maybe they remembered him and it's like, oh no, he's good, so let him be our guardian. But that was so interesting. I'm curious, like that could be any of those options, and that just gets Jason treating him even more like a subject. So luckily, Alec, Abby, and Liz are able to get to him in time, which obviously you have Liz being like, wait, this is Holland. It's like, I knew he had changed, but like hearing about it and seeing it firsthand, completely different. And now even to the point he rushes to the swamp at the end and he pulls up his body. It's like, this is Alec Holland. Alec Holland is dead. To kind of make Abby realize, like, you could have never, like, I'm not worth your time. I'm just like an imitation. I'm an echo of who Alec Holland is. The real Alec Holland is dead, and there's no coming back for him. But at the same time, which it even adds context to that whole thing of like, it's like, oh, I look like Alec again. It's like, it makes it even sadder too, because it's like, oh, makes even more sense of why he gets able to tap into the green, not just because he is transformed into this, because that's all he is. He probably is part of the green. That's why it's so easy for him. That's why the plants can communicate to him. He is the plants come to life with Alec's consciousness, with his memories. So, like I said, just an echo, which is like uber depressing, especially for Abby, because Abby was like, she had fallen for him and she wanted to save him, but now knowing like, oh, he's gone forever, like, because it's interesting because like one of the promotional materials, like kind of wallpaper poster thing for this is him the Swamp Thing coming partly out the swamp with bones, like a skeleton in his hand, like somebody's body. I was like, okay, so what's that symbolizing? I would have never guessed that that's what this is supposed to represent. Because remember, there was that time that Abby had found a body that was kind of trapped in the plants or whatever. I was thinking, like, is that supposed to be Alec's body, or is that supposed to be someone else's body? I think it was supposed to be someone else's body, or maybe it really was supposed to be Alec's. But I mean, it kind of makes sense. I mean, because when you look back on it, what happened, like when he died, when he was in the swamp water, like what happened, the plants kind of attached to his head and everything. I think they specifically attached to his head. You didn't see them attached to any other part of his body. I had to go back and watch, but I feel like now thinking about it, all they did was attach to his head, because I guess that's the easiest way to tap into his brain to get his memories. But it's like, jeez, dude, that's kind of harsh, because he believed himself. It's like, no, I'm Alec Holland. He was struggling so hard to hold on to that human side of him, hoping that maybe I could be human again. But now it's like, not only do you find out that your existence is, I'm not Alec Holland, I never was. I just had the dude's memories, and then on top of that, it's like I can never be cured, because this is all I am. This is all who I'll ever be, and probably looking at himself like a monster. And because of that, because I'm not the real Alec Holland, Abby will never feel that way about me. This is just who I am. He'd already kind of accepted his destiny, but now even more so of like, no, I'm here forever. So I was like, that's a hard pill to swallow. On top of all this, you have Jason. He has all these discoveries and everything. He's ready to help his wife. In fact, this situation showing that the plants, the mutagen, can absorb memories, shows that not only can it obviously regenerate memory, like the body, it can also regenerate memories, because it was able to take those memories from Alec Holland and give them to Swamp Thing to convince him enough that it's like, oh, Alec Holland so he could do the same thing to his wife. But sadly, because of her condition and her memory slipping, she kept forgetting that she had already taken her medication, which they had already set that up beforehand that she already does that. She's like, where's my pills? It's like, honey, you already took your medication. And, it's sad too because Abby and Liz had already visited her early episode, and Abby's like, I hope, if it's okay with you, I'd like to come back. And it's like, also, she's like, do know that, my husband, he's a little too smart for his own good, but know that everything he's done, no matter what it is, it's all been for my sake, so understand. Which Abby can, because Abby was doing so much to try and save Alec, so she can understand. And almost it's interesting when you look at the parallel. Once again, I've been using that word a lot lately, but look at it comparisons. That way I change it up a little bit. See what I did there? Forgive me. Nevertheless, the fact is, it shows that both of them are kind of in that moment of like, he's losing his wife because of her memory condition, and like she ended up taking all of her medication because she kept forgetting she'd already taken it. So it's like, oh, my attempt to save my wife has kind of failed. I should have been here for her. Maybe I could have prevented all this. So my need to try and save her might have actually taken her from me. And at the same time, Abby's making the discovery of like, wait, the real Alec Holland is dead. Like, I can't save him. There's no bringing back the dead type of thing. And it's just like a harsh reality sinking in for both of them. Then at the same time, we've got good old Avery showing up, and Maria been like, wait, Avery, oh my God. He's like, oh, don't worry about it. Yeah, I know you're shocked to see me. And basically, he's using the whole situation with her attacking Abby and Susie, trying to use that as a means to get her locked up. I was like, yeah, if anything, you would have acted upon that sooner. So it's like, yeah, this has always been something in your back pocket. I guess they just needed a legitimate excuse to kind of make it happen. But it was a judge that was in his pocket, and Maria kind of gets sent to a mental facility. It's like, oh yeah, I just want my wife back again. It's like, and I even love Maria being like, honestly, I don't know what's more impressive. The fact is that you're still alive after all that, or the fact is that you managed to get me in here at all. So. And it's just like, oh, I need to know more so than anything, why did you do it? She's like, all the lies, them getting people to do your dirty work, knowing that you were spending all your nights with her, Lucilia. And, it's like, oh, like, the fact of the matter is, Maria's like, this isn't over. But Ava's like, oh, once this door is closed, it is. But it's like, I don't know, man. Maria's got quite the reach herself. Because it's interesting because, like, there's a whole Ellery situation of like, oh, you think he's going to worry about you? It's like, no, like, I'm sure Avery's going to switch that situation around and be like, I don't know. I feel like he might get cut out as the middleman, considering the fact is that Ellery was planning on, the whole Alex situation anyway, coming after himself. But I guess like the whole Jason and Avery getting him thing kind of worked in Ellery's favor, not necessarily because I feel like he would have had a more direct approach to it. But I guess like those people, those hired guns were from Ellery and the conclave. So I don't know. I just think that's kind of fascinating. Especially because it's something I brought up last episode too, of like, is he actually himself or has he been possessed by the rot? It kind of does. I mean, it seems like even if you're not 100% possessed by the rot, the darkness is kind of spread enough throughout Murray where it's kind of like, yeah, there's definitely, it's infected people in more ways than they really realize. The fact is many people are willing to cross certain lines they might not have been willing to at the very least cross before. Now begs the question, who else is going to suffer his wrath? Well, there's Matt, there's Lucilia, so he's not done with his revenge. So I'm curious what he's going to do. Once again, let's not forget, he has a whole bunch of dirt he can throw on Lucilia, so I'm sure that's going to be something we see possibly come about with her situation of him burying her with all the shady stuff she's done over the years for him. So that's going to bring all that crashing down. It's actually kind of interesting because Matt was actually talking to his dad about the whole situation, because it's like, sons and parents are going to fight, but it's like at the end of the day, Lucilia loves you and everything she's ever done has been for your sake. But obviously for Matt, it's kind of like, I wonder, because it's like, has it been for his sake or was it for her own sake? Has she just been selfish, trying to justify it? Been like, oh, it's all for my son. Who knows? It's kind of interesting. I wasn't sure I'm curious to see where they're taking Matt's story, because obviously, like, he was drunk. I mean, obviously, like, it's supposed to represent the fact that he's falling apart because of this whole thing. Well, because one, he thought he killed his dad, especially killing his dad potentially. Well, that was more so his mom, but his dad is dead after finding out, wait, my dad is my dad. That Avery's his dad. But on top of all that, it's like, oh, I killed Alec Holland. Wait, Alec Holland is alive. Now it turns into a situation of, oh no, I did kill him because he is dead. which this all can be used to prosecute Avery or Matt, because this might put Matt in jail, because with his body there might be DNA results that kind of point towards. I mean, I wouldn't assume so, just because there's nothing that could tie to him. Like, the boat's already been recovered. I don't think there's anything specifically without, witness testimony, which the only witness was, what his name, Remy, like, he's gone. So I don't know if there's anything else that could be done on that front either way. But like I said, Matt's falling apart anyway. Drunk driving, he hits a divide. So it doesn't look like he's dead, just knocked out. But it's like, okay, where's that going to go? I guess, like, Lucilia's going to be so distracted with that. Then you're going to have, like, Avery show up. But it's like, is he going to try to be there for Matt, considering the fact is Matt tried to kill him? I mean, it was more so Lucilia and Matt was accomplice with it, but still begs the question what he's going to do about it, because that's still his flesh and blood. Because even though Lucilia is the woman he cares about, Maria he might care about more, just because also, like, the money thing, potentially, the connection she has. Lucilia, he probably won't do anything to her directly, but you never know. He's gotten his hands dirty before now with home dude that was kind of talking to him about the money that he was that whole laundering money situation, that whole loan thing, that dude, what's his name, Gordon? So that still also hasn't circled back around. I mean, the body's somewhere that probably won't be found so easily, but I'm curious to see ultimately where all that ends up taking us going forward into next episode. Next episode is the season finale. I'm curious to see how that's all going to wrap up. Obviously, there's a whole conversation of originally this was planned to be 13 episodes, but they stopped production after 10. It's the whole money issue, them filming here in North Carolina, and them not having the money to kind of, the tax break that they were supposed to be getting, which would have helped cover a lot of the production costs, that whole complicated thing. Like I said, it's going to be interesting to see, regardless, where everything kind of ends up in the season finale, and, because obviously we see a lot of stories kind of reaching their climax. So I'm curious, because I was curious, like, what that meant, considering there were supposed to be 3 more episodes. Like, what did that mean for this story? Like, is stuff happening at a faster pace? Like, were certain things kind of cut out and left out because of those 3 extra episodes being gone? Or are things going to end on an even bigger cliffhanger than the original was supposed to? Questions like that, we'll ultimately have to wait and see what the season finale has in store for us. And now moving on to this week's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, we have May and Daisy kind of going about this whole S.H.I.E.L.D. situation very differently. May is trying to appeal to the Coulson side of things, just being like, yeah, kind of give into those memories. You remember things, like, obviously trying to tap into that Coulson side of things, but it's like, especially after the new discoveries that S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of pointed out of him being basically a copy of Coulson, just with his memories and everything, but he kind of snaps because it's like, I'm some excuse to kind of feel that hole in your heart from some dead guy. That's not me. Obviously, Daisy, it's like, no, you're here trying to, like, reach some part of Coulson. He's not Coulson. Coulson's dead. I know you want him to be, but it's like, we need to tap into that creature, which May's like, no, that's a bad idea, because that thing could be just as monstrous as S.H.I.E.L.D, if not worse, and we'd have that to deal with, and plus Mac and Yo-Yo in their situation. It's already too much, but it's like, that's our only means. May wants to try and rely on the Coulson side, because Coulson might be that good natured part of Coulson could be there to kind of give them the answers they need, but it's like, no, we need to rely on what he really is. To the point Daisy starts pushing him and being like, no, you're not Coulson. Coulson's dead. Basically saying, you're nothing to me. Show me what you really are. Like, for him, he feels this anger, this deep-seated anger, and he doesn't want to give into it. And Daisy's like, you're afraid to give into it because you know that if you do, it might be that that's really who you are. And he's just like, I'm done. This person I am, this Coulson, he was kind of like a father figure to her, which kind of pissed her off. And you could tell she was trying to be like, okay, I got this. Like, trying to say, like, no, you don't have any effect on me, when in fact, it does, because she tries to keep up this strong front, trying to be like, okay, May got compromised, but I won't. But you can't help it, especially for her, because, and that's something like Simmons kind of deals with. It's like saying, like, I recently learned not to kind of keep a lot of stuff bottled up. Her and Fitz's little mindscape adventure in that episode, but for her, it's like, you have a tendency to run. what happened when you got your powers? You ran. When Lincoln died, you ran. And Coulson, what did you do? Yeah, you wanted to help me find Fitz, sure, but it was also because of your ulterior motives. You just wanted to get as far away from here because being in this base would have constantly reminded you of Coulson and just how important he was to you. Like you were having a hard time letting him go before, but because Daisy is the way she is, she wants to be strong. She doesn't want to let her. She doesn't like showing her heart on her sleeve when in fact that's exactly where her heart is. She's a very caring person, but she doesn't want because I think she's afraid if she feels it, it makes it so real, and she feels like she'll be slowed down by it, But I think because she took what Simmons said and she read Coulson's note, which she never opened. I think she kind of tried. I think she went 180, and I think she kind of overcompensated because she's like, no. I'm not gonna let my emotions get the best of me. I'm gonna be cool, calm, and collected. We need data. We need to push this guy. So she breaks his neck with her powers, and to kind of get him to awaken his powers. It's like, was this really the smart thing to do? Couldn't you give us a little warning? If I had told you guys, would you have tried to stop me? They were like, yeah, of course. And she's like, and that's the reason why I didn't tell you. But when Sarge comes back, he's full-blown that power. And it's really hard to say what his power is exactly. I guess it's supposed to be kind of representative of kind of like the monolith. But basically the flesh on his hand kind of flakes up and it falls off and it floats. I guess it's supposed to be kind of like... I don't know. It's really hard to say what it is. But I guess it's like maybe like he pulls back kind of like... because his power represents all three, space, time, and creation. So maybe that's what his power is. But whatever it is, he hit Daisy really hard. And then he uses it again, and he tore a hole in the wall. So now Daisy's like, okay, using this as a perfect opportunity. We're going to use that sword. But what if there's still some part of Coulson in there, but she's not willing to listen? Because she's like, Coulson died a year ago. I'm not going to let this guy who looks like him stop me. And she even tells May, it's like, no, I don't need your backup because you still look at this guy as potentially Coulson, and because of that, it has to be me. I'm the only one who's willing to see him as not Coulson, so I have to put him down. But when the time comes, she can't put him down because he asked her for it, because he's saying like, do it. If it works on me, that means it can work on S.H.I.E.L.D. And it's like, wait, you're sacrificing yourself. He's like, do it, Sky. And she stops because it's like, wait, what? Yeah. Anytime anyone's talked about her, they refer to her as Daisy, and she will always be Sky to Coulson. Because let's not forget, wasn't it back in season 3? Yeah, season 3, because that's when that first came up. That was a running gag at the beginning. He'd always constantly call her Sky. Everyone else had already gotten adjusted to calling her Daisy, but he still got caught up calling her Sky. So... being like, there's still some part of Coulson there. Even him being like, you've always been capable of more than you've realized about yourself. And just the fact he's willing to even sacrifice him like that. It's like self like that. It's like, yeah, you are Coulson. And it's like, he's like, I could hurt you. And she's like, I know you won't. And it's like, and I think that's kind of the beauty of it too, because her and May end up talking, and she's like, I went in there looking for something else, and I went looking for the creature that he is, but ended up finding Coulson instead. It's kind of crazy how everything ends up working like that. Like May, now Daisy sees what May saw beforehand. It's like, it's just that thing of like, you just kind of have to see it for yourself, because I think it's a thing of Daisy, was still kind of like Coulson's dead. Like having to live with that is hard enough. Like giving herself any hope that he might still exist somewhere in Sarge, like it's too much, because if things don't work out, that hope's taken from you, so that's why she didn't want to believe, But it's like, okay, so I think whatever is in, Coulson, within Sarge, she's like, it's bad, but I think it's what we're going to need to fight S.H.I.E.L.D. And they're like, are you sure? Honestly, she's like, I'm not 100% sure. But she's like, Sarge has spent his entire life trying to find a place to belong, and all Coulson ever wanted for us is for us to look after each other. It's like, if we help Sarge, he'll help us, So, and that's a question I brought up last episode. When it's all said and done, because he is Coulson, what are they going to do with that? Is he going to be like a new fill-in Coulson? But then it'd be weird, which is funny because I said fill-in Coulson because he is Phil Coulson. I wasn't even trying to make wordplay there, but it just happened. Isn't it just like serendipitous when it happens? Nevertheless, I just thought, I'm just so curious to see what they do in the end. Like, is he just going to go out on his own? They're just going like, oh, Coulson's out there somewhere in the galaxy, or is he going to stay? I mean, especially if he gets all his memories back, but then also the fact is he doesn't age because there's some creature inside of him, or is it going to be a situation of Coulson, the creature's going to be removed from Coulson, and it's like, yeah, we got Coulson back. Maybe over the course of it, they're trying to help him refresh his memory. So things that haven't really 100% come back, they slowly come back and they kind of get Coulson back. Maybe get him back in his suit and he's like, whoa, this feels weird. It feels right. Maybe I don't know where they're going to take that Sarge situation. He even picks up the sword, which is so neat that that's becoming a thing because it makes you just feel like, because that's like one of my favorite like things. Like, some of my favorite things are samurais and knights, just because, I'm a sword person. Swords are just like my favorite weapons. I've always been obsessed with swords ever since I was a little kid. So it's just seeing him kind of with the sword in hand. It's kind of like he's almost like a knight, plus he has his powers. Will he end up losing control of him? Will the thing inside kind of take control? I don't know. It's interesting because he had even made a point to Daisy when she had came back and being like, I'm neither one of these two things. I'm neither all these memories of Coulson and the anger from this thing inside of me. They're neither who I am. I'm borrowing pieces from other things, from the creature that's inside of me and memories from Coulson, and that's got to feel very crazy and a very, very crazy on a very existential level, So I'm interested to see where things kind of go on that front. Then there's a whole situation with Fitz and Simmons trying to find a way to kind of fight S.H.I.E.L.D. I love it that every time like Fitz and Simmons are saying something, you have like Deke in the back being like, oh yeah, I thought that too, like adding his little 2 cents. It's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, come on, stop, Deke. But in the end, he's actually the one that figured it out. He's like, oh my God, she kind of messes with her body on a different frequency, and that's how she's able to kind of like phase in and possess someone else's body. She basically adjusts the frequency of her body, and that's what those knives do. They kind of create an oppositioning frequency that kind of bounce back the frequency of the strike. That's why they work the way they do. So it's like if they can make that in a portable thing like a belt, which I'm sure they're referencing kind of Deke's like gravity belt he had back in season 5 in the future. I'm thinking they're kind of referring to that potentially. But if they can get that, they can repel S.H.I.E.L.D. from possessing them. And it's like, yo, Deke is the one who kind of figured it out. And it's like, oh, they're leaving him up to the design. And it's kind of sweet because you see him looking, because it's like, oh my God, I'm working with my grandma and my grandpa. Like, we're working as a family. Because I think for him, he was still kind of worried with this note, this other Fitz. It's kind of like, oh, he kind of got things pretty kosher between him and, the other Fitz from last season, so he probably didn't think things were going to work out this time. But it's like, oh no, we're kind of jamming and working as a family. We figured this out together. So I thought that was pretty dope. So along with all of that, there is the possession back and forth. It's like S.H.I.E.L.D., like Yo-Yo wakes up, she's got blood on her hands, and it's like, oh my God, Mac, where's S.H.I.E.L.D.? And it's like, I'm like, is she possessing him? I was like, I don't know. And it's like, just don't say anything. And then Yo-Yo mentions Benson, and he's like, oh, that's a name I've heard before. It's like, there you go. It's like, wow, she's really on top of that whole possessing people thing. Then there's the whole thing with Benson. And I like how Yo-Yo was able to kind of reach him to kind of let him know, like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, like, this is what's up. And he backs out. But sadly, S.H.I.E.L.D. just loves some murder. She kills a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent like it's nothing. It's like Jesus. And then when the impact is done, she leaves the person's body. So Mac is stuck there being like, oh, it's me with my hand on a knife stuck in this agent's neck. And it's just, But she uses the device that has, the energy from the monoliths inside of it. It's interesting when she explains something, basically saying that the creation monolith is the strongest, but what's interesting is because humans can't control it, because humans have great imaginations, that's the beauty about it, but because they can't control it, it just reverts to tackling your fear. I guess because when it comes to our imaginations, our fear is our strongest. When it comes to imagination, the fear is the strongest emotion. So I guess that's what it kind of latches onto until like you control it to kind of latch onto other things you have focused in your mind. So she does it to Benson, brings out his greatest fear, and it's related to Thomas, his husband. Basically losing him being a situation of it's all your fault all over again. It's like torturing him. So he has no choice but to give in to her demands, to have to kind of suffer that punishment over and over again is what she was threatening him with. To kind of, get it on a slightly happier note, I do like the whole Mac and Yo-Yo thing of her being like, yeah, you having this plan to try and protect me. I don't really need your protection. She's like, no, I didn't do it for you. The fact is, I came here because, she can only possess one person at a time, so it's good to have another person. Yo-Yo's like, yeah, for her to possess one person and the other person, that person kills the other. It's like, yeah, but I also was trying to get her out of the base. This way it gives the team time to kind of find a way to stop her. And Yo-Yo's like, actually, that's actually a pretty decent plan. And he's like, yeah, feels good to argue again, doesn't it? It's like, oh, you two are so adorable. But I love later on he even admits, he's like, yeah, I was doing that just to kind of protect you. And Yo-Yo's like, even if this situation was flipped, I would definitely come on the ship to be, make sure that you were okay to look after you. I was like, oh, it's like, dude, stop being adorable, you two. I love it, And now I love, they end up freeing Benson so he can warn the team and let them know what's up, because they need to go to this specific temple to use the device to unlock the monolith's powers to basically open the portal to her realm, which is really interesting, because when he was passed out, Sarge saw it seemed like 3 creatures. I don't know if they were like mummies or whatever, or whether they were just statues, whatever they were like 3 things. I guess they were representing the 3 monoliths, or rather the power of space, time, and creation. Whatever the case may be, it was just kind of interesting. Maybe that kind of is going to reflect to the next episode or something when it comes to the whole S.H.I.E.L.D situation. But it's like, oh, she needs to rebuild the monoliths, and she's going to do that by getting inside of their heads. But it's like, oh, we have nothing left to fear. But then the fear creates home dude. I'm blanking on his name from last season. I was like, oh, right, because his inhuman ability involves Earth. He can be used to make a new monolith. Maybe because it tapped into the fear of being like, oh, because the last thing we would want is him here. Well, maybe it's because it's a fear because that was someone that they cared about and they looked after while they were in the future. Or it could also be interpreted as like, oh, because he is someone that could be used to make it. So that fear of like, oh, he's an option popped into their heads, and the power of creation fed on that and popped them out. So that's going to be interesting to see, where that goes. Also, at the same time, we have the Chronicons. Basically, they've got their own plans. They end up killing their leader because it's like, oh, we're not just going to rebuild Chronicon 2. That's going to be a thing, but we're also going to take over another world and make it Chronicon 3. That way, Chronicon 2 isn't defenseless. So it's kind of like repair our world and keep it safe, sure, but have another world kind of be there for a tactical advantage to kind of keep our world safe. So what world they're going to choose? I'm assuming Earth, which that clashing with Earth, I'm sure Enoch's going to probably try and stop it, but then it's going to be the complicated thing of this is about saving your people, Enoch. You said that you were going to do that, so will you go with this now, even if it means potentially possessing another world? Like I said, I don't think it might. I mean, my mind goes to Earth just because Earth's just fortunate like that. But maybe it's another world. It's going to be interesting to see where that all ends up taking us. I have no idea what to expect with all of this. The team's going to get there, and how is this fight with S.H.I.E.L.D going to go? Obviously, the Shrike are supposed to be heading that direction so that their bodies can get possessed by S.H.I.E.L.'s people. Maybe, like I brought up before, maybe the creature is going to leave him. Maybe the creature possessing Coulson's body, maybe it leaves, but some essence of it stays, Well, because it seems like it's the only thing keeping this body alive. Or maybe it just possesses the body, but the moment it leaves, it's almost like, hey, there's a duplicate of Coulson. That's why I was thinking, that way you get around the whole, he doesn't age thing, so. Also, we haven't seen it, but where's Snowflake? What about the whole her and Deke thing? The last thing we saw was Deke bringing her a TV, 2 episodes ago? So, we'll see. Because everyone else on the team is dead. She's the only one remaining. So that's something to kind of keep in the back of mind. Either way, like I said, I'm very interested to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.